hello, and welcome to the Big Footy Crowcast preview. I'm your host, Scorpus, and tonight on the show we have with us Phoenix and Mr. Mystery Guest. How you guys going tonight?
Evening, Scorpus. Very well, mate. And yourself?
Yeah. Maybe a bit harsh on the voice at the moment. Just been out yelling at people in a bar, but we're on for the Crowcast as always, and we will get straight into the changes because I might have a little bit of a rant again, maybe. We'll start with GWS, though. Coming out, they've got their two defenders, Bunteen and Moore, out. They've brought in Adam Tomlinson after he had 52 disposals in the NEFL on the weekend, and also Steele, he's coming in as well. So I think the expectation there is probably that Tomlinson will play in defence. For Adelaide, we have gone unchanged. Now, I have a couple of issues with this, and I suspect Phoenix and Mr. Mystery Guest, you will probably also have some issues with our selection this week. So, coming straight off the Gold Coast game, now, we've just played a NEFL side and beaten them by 72 points, or 70-something points, which is not a bad result or anything. We've done quite well there, and we've made some decent choices to keep guys like Jared Lyons in the team, who's been performing quite well, and some of our younger guys like Malira still in the team. However, two list cloggers, guys that should not be in the team, are still in this week to face a much stronger opponent in GWS. I am, of course, talking about Nathan Van Berlo and Ricky Henderson. Why they're in the team, again, it just baffles me. After I didn't think they were amazing last week, they offer very little in terms of their disposal efficiency and their pressure around the ball. Van Berlo, of course, is cooked. Henderson is a squib and is soft, and I just don't want to see him in the team. And, well, in what is probably a little bit of a surprise as well, we've left both Crouches out of the team. Now, I'm calling bullshit on Matt Crouch being rested with soreness last week. He is probably being dropped, and that is a travesty considering he's a young, upcoming gun player for us. Brad Crouch has been absolutely stuffed around by our selectors. There's an SANFL bye this week. He's getting no consistency in his performances. The same will go for Matt Crouch, who will miss a second week. Wig, who was a travelling emergency last week, will miss 3 matches in a row, and we're still playing guys like Nathan Van Berlo, who have no future at our club. I'll let you take over, Phoenix, because it's another week of extremely disappointing selections by the Adelaide Crows.
They've just shown themselves to be particularly conservative. It really makes me weep to see R. Henderson and Van Berlo in the team, with the two Crouch boys listed as emergencies, and for that matter, Jake Kelly. Jake Kelly, if he's fit and that close to selection, offers far more defensively than Henderson every day of the week, and probably far more than Nathan Van Berlo defensively every day of the week too. And this whole, I reckon there's something behind the scenes going on with the Crouch boys, particularly Brad, because it's just baffling how those two boys have been managed, and it's quite disappointing. It doesn't. I keep saying it, and I'll continue to say it until it becomes clear to me, but I don't see a plan.
Oh, I totally agree. I don't see any sort of forward planning by the Crows selectors at the moment. There's no sort of thinking about, are we in a premiership window at the moment? Are we challenging for a flag this year? Because if so, then there might be some reason to play senior guys in the team. But if we're really planning for a push at a flag over the next couple of years, 2017, 2018 and up there, we shouldn't be playing guys that aren't going to be in our premiership squad in those years. And Van Berlo, I think he's very, very close to retirement. He won't be part of those squads. Whereas guys like Matt Crouch, Brad Crouch, these are the guys that should be playing as many games as possible this year so that we can really start to push into contention in the next couple of years. I don't really have a problem with Laird being still out this week. If he's still injured, then, it's best to err on the side of caution with regards to that. But I just want to highlight perhaps one of the quotes that was mentioned by none other than David Noble in this week's selection report by the Adelaide Crows. He has said, "It's always hard to change a winning team, and last week there were some positive signs in regards to areas of our game we have been working on." Now, for starters, of course there are going to be areas in our game that will look positive when we play a team that is NEFL standard. I mean, come on, that's fucking obvious. And the second thing it's always hard to change a winning team. Well, not really. It's actually not that hard to change a winning team when you're looking to the future, and I just don't think that the Crows are doing that at the moment. And if we look at a solid team that's been performing extremely well over the last couple of years, the Hawthorn Hawks, a couple of years back in their preliminary final, they had a great victory that sent them on to the grand final, as you'd expect from a champion team. And at the time, none other than Cyril Rioli was injured. And, of course, Hawthorn decided, oh, well, we're in a grand final. We've just won a game, but we can make changes to a winning team, and we are going to make changes that make the team better. We're going to bring back Cyril Rioli for the crunch game of the year, and I just don't think that the Adelaide Crows have the guts to make those sort of changes if it were in the same situation in a grand final. Mr. Mystery Guest, how do you see these selections? Are you as disappointed as both of us?
Yeah, definitely. Makes VB selection from last week looking worse. You mentioned how maybe Matt was dropped. He still didn't play last week. So I'm thinking maybe he did have soreness and we saw an opportunity to give VB one last chance and play him against a really weak side and give him an opportunity to look decent there, and they can give him one last chance to show that he can still play in the team.
Did he show
That's
enough,
what it
though?
looks like to me, and it's really concerning that they've chosen to... Sorry?
Did he actually show enough against the Gold Coast?
According to Noble, he did.
Oh, well, Noble.
To me, no, but with the selection... You mentioned Noble's, what he said. I posted something similar in the changes thread on the Big Footy board. How he was talking about how Crouch was forced out. Everyone played well last week, so we just couldn't make any changes. It seems like a manufactured thing for us to give VB one last chance in the side. And there's something smells really bad about that. There's just something not quite right about that. And our list management over the last 3 to 4 weeks has been really, really bad.
Yeah, it's just a number of posters on the Big Footy board are talking about how we're back to the Neil Craig days of dropping young guys. We're back to Brenton Sanderson selections of just picking, whoever's the most senior guys that we can put on the park. And it just doesn't seem like something that an experienced and intelligent head coach would be making. I just don't see how someone like Don Pike would go and, it seemed like in the match against Gold Coast, he was making a couple of changes and he was, playing around with our structures a little bit just to see how we might go and how we might improve our game. But then against a stronger opposition, he doesn't take the opportunity to bring back in guys that could really, really help us in that match. It's just... It's really disappointing, and it kind of reinforces just the sort of mediocrity that the Crows have been going through for the past however many years. We haven't really gone anywhere, and as Phoenix said, I don't think these selections really show much towards future planning. But we will put the selections behind us because there's still a game to review. It's still going to be a cracker on Saturday night, hopefully. It's, of course, at Adelaide Oval. We'll just quickly go through the last match because I think there's a lot that we can take out of last match that we played against them. Round 8, 2016 in Sydney at the Showgrounds. GWS won this match by 24 points, and a couple of their guys had really good games, but they're actually not at the club anymore. So McCarthy kicked 4 goals, so pretty good effort from him, and Treloar had 30-plus touches. I'm also concerned about Mumford, who destroyed Jacobs in that particular match, but we'll see how he goes on the weekend. Best on ground for the Crows was Patrick Dangerfield, 27 touches, and Taylor Walker chipped in with 4 goals. Sloan and Douglas were out injured that match. Phoenix, who is the most important guy in the GWS team that we need to stop this week?
Well, I think it's Mumford, actually. I think first use is going to be critical, and to be honest, with the pace of their midfield, if Mummy gets on top of Jacobs and gives them first use, not only in the middle but around the grounds, then we're going to find it very hard to stop their spread.
Oh, absolutely. He's critical to their team, and we've seen over the past couple of years that when Mumford isn't playing in the GWS team, they look a lot weaker. So he's really critical to their midfield strength, and if we can really clamp down on him, then we'll go a long way to sort of getting on top in the midfield. I was also going to nominate Heath Shaw, who had a record number of effective kicks last week, something like 36, which is absolutely ridiculous. But we need to really stop his penetrating kicks off the half-back flank. I think he could be really dangerous. Mr. Mystery Guest, who do you nominate as the key matchup this week?
I was thinking Heath Shaw as well. I was thinking maybe Douglas, but more with our current lineup, I'll probably stay more in the midfield. I think Charlie. I wonder if Charlie might spend some time near Shaw trying to make sure that he doesn't just rack up the numbers like he did last week.
Yeah, we definitely need to make him accountable.
He gave them so much drive last week.
Yeah, he was outstanding last week.
And so we can't let him do that again.
Oh, absolutely not. He
had
like to clamp down on
36 kicks at 95% efficiency. Sorry.
Yeah, he's a quite strong player for them, and hopefully, he won't get a hold of us at the moment. Phoenix, what about the defense? So they've gone in.
Scorpus, you were just.
Is there something wrong with your internet connection or something, Mr. Rich? I guess we keep managing to speak over the top of each other for some reason.
Yeah, sorry, on my end, you just kept cutting out, so I wasn't sure when to talk and when not to.
Ah, interesting there. Oh, well, we'll keep going. As I was saying, Phoenix, about the defence, GWS have gone in looking very, very weak in their defensive zone, of course, with Bunting and Moore being injured last week. Their only real key defender I see down there is probably Pat Full. Of course, Davis is not playing. Marchbank's out injured. Core's out injured. They're going to have to put guys like Tomlinson and maybe even a Patton down there. Is this a real issue for GWS this weekend?
Well, it's probably their only major area of concern. So it highlights the importance of us breaking even across the mids, because I think if we do get service into our forward line, they're going to struggle to contain us. Certainly with their key outs through the back, particularly Davis, who must have been quite close, and I reckon if he was even 75%, they might have brought him back. So he's obviously still not quite right with that hammy. But they will struggle to cover our flexibility up forward. I think the key is that we need clean service in there. If we look to bomb it in, then that'll probably nullify our advantage. But if we try and hit up some targets this week, then that might cause GWS some problems, and probably is key to us being in the match, I think.
Mr. Mystery Guest, what do you think about their forward line? So they've got Cameron, Lobb, and Patton up forward. At least that's how they've named it this week. Who takes each of those players, do you reckon?
I would start it as Talia to Cameron, Hardigan to Lobb, that's a Patton.
So do you think that Lever has the ability to take on such a big body in Patton?
I think so. I mean, if he plays it smart, he can. Obviously, Patton's got a bigger body, but Lever doesn't normally start sort of next to his player. He moves off a little bit, and I think Lever's style of play, that probably the body-on-body stuff won't be too much trouble for him. The way he reads the ball will make sure that that's not too much of a problem, I think. And I think that Lobb is more dangerous than Patton is. And right now, Hardigan is a better defensive stopper. So I'd send Hardigan to Lobb.
Yeah, I totally agree. We had some guys on the Big Footy forums again who were suggesting that we don't really have a strong matchup for Rory Lobb, considering his height. He's 206 centimetres, I believe. Kyle Hardigan's only 195 centimetres or so. But I still think that we don't want to be playing a ruckman on Rory Lobb just to get that height advantage, because the ruckman in our sides, I mean, guys like well, we only really play one ruckman, don't we? And Sam Jacobs, he's not really going to be in the defensive zone all that much. And we really needed to play a proper defender on him in Carl Hardigan, who's been in fantastic form and shown his ability to take ruckman in the past. So I think that's probably a really strong matchup. But of course, the area that is the most concern in this match is the battle of the midfield. And I'm just going to go through and list the entire GWS midfield so you can see some of the quality that they've got in there. They've got Josh Kelly. They've got Jacob Hopper, who's just played 3 games. Dylan Shield, Tom Scully, Lockie Whitfield, Jack Steele, Callan Ward, Toby Green, Adam Kennedy. And of course, they've got other guys rotating through. Stephen Caniglio, Reece Palmer plays a bit more forward. Nathan Wilson, who plays a bit more in the back lines. That is a really, really strong side. And up against our midfield with, Nathan Van Bell and Ricky Henderson rotating through there. Phoenix, how are we going to win this midfield battle?
Well, to be honest with you, the way they have named and structured the team, my feeling is that we're almost going to concede the midfield. I think you're going to see a lot of congestion across our half-back line. I think we're going to look to block their run, crowd the forward line, and really try and get our slingshot game going. I can't see how they could possibly, as a selection committee, think that we're going to match them one-on-one. And so there must be a strategy. And the only strategy that springs out to me, as I said, is blocking their run, making it a bit of a mongrel contest around the ball, and then hoping to get some rebound off half-back. That's the only way I can see us winning. Other than that, if we're going head-to-head, we're stuffed.
I like your idea of us having made these selections so that we can clog up our defensive back line. But I think it's kind of a little bit of a cop-out, and that in actual fact our selectors have just been incompetent in not selecting a side that's actually capable of taking on GWS. I just can't see how we could leave out a guy like Matt Crouch, who we know has been very strong in the midfield, especially through the opening rounds when we've had some really tough matches. We really need a guy like Matt Crouch who has that ball-winning ability in the centre against a team that's as strong as GWS. And it's just... I agree that it could be the reason that they've gone in with some interesting strategy like this, but it just seems like that's kind of excusing them, because they did the same thing against Gold Coast, where we were expected to pretty easily account for the Gold Coast midfield, and they've gone and selected the same team against GWS with a much stronger midfield. So unless they've decided to go and radically change the game plan halfway through our training this week or something, I just can't see that happening. I think we're going to get pretty comprehensively destroyed in the midfield. Mr. Guest, how much ground do you reckon we'll be conceding to these guys at the stoppages? Do you see us getting sucked into the contest again, like in all these past couple of games?
I mean, it's pretty much what I expect at the moment. I think if we're going to be competitive, we probably can't beat them head to head. But if we're competitive and to stop them getting easy passage into the forward line from centre clearances, we need to change the structure in our centre clearance setup, because the way we're doing it at the moment just does not work at all. We cannot normally have Thompson sitting on the defensive side, and then he gets sucked in, and so there's pretty much no one on the defensive side, and they're all the opposition are just free to run wherever they want. If we do that against GWS, they will absolutely destroy us.
Yeah, it's a really tricky issue for our midfield at the moment with those structures at the stoppage. I think we've been really lucky over the past couple of weeks to sort of limit the damage that teams like the Western Bulldogs and Geelong have managed to score against us, considering I think in both of those games, a lot of our listeners will agree that we were soundly beaten in the midfield in both of those games, and I think it'll be similar against GWS. The issue that I have with our midfielders is, I mean, it comes down to, well, personnel for starters, but the fact that we just don't have people in our team that want to run defensively, and we don't have players in our team that want to run into space to create options for us when we're trying to execute our slingshot game plan. So when guys like Smith and Seedsman are coming off the half-back line and they're looking up the ground, frequently, even against Gold Coast with their shocking side that they were fielding that week, there was just no one running into any sort of decent space to allow us to really link up through the midfield and really cut through their zone. There was no one really wanting to make that effort, and I think it comes down to a number of players that I could really single out. And Scott Thompson is one of them. He seems really slow both inside the contest and trying to spread defensively, whether he's trying to chase down players or block up space or run defensively. He just doesn't seem up to it at the moment. Richard Douglas, he was better against Gold Coast, but he still seems to lack the sort of knowledge and smarts to position himself in the correct positions around the contest to stop the opposition players from getting out, even though he's been playing a defensive role in the past couple of weeks. I think that Nathan Van Berlo, he doesn't have the speed or agility to really take anyone from their team at all. I can't see a single matchup for him. Ricky Henderson, he's soft and unaccountable defensively. And Smith and Seedsman, while they're typically outside players, I don't quite think they're getting their positioning right on the outside of the contest, and sometimes they've just been floating around there doing not a whole lot. On the other hand, I think we've had some quite good players through there. Rory Sloane's been an absolute champion for us. Jared Lyons has been surprisingly good at this throughout this season. Rory Atkins has been fantastic as well. And even seeing Charlie Cameron rotating through the midfield, I think he was a real highlight over the past couple of weeks through the midfield, and I think he could be a real strength for us this week. Phoenix, what about Cameron? How important is he to our team? He seems like a really good player, and I want to see him more in the midfield.
Yeah, I hope we've seen the birth of another midfielder because he adds aggression, a touch of class, and certainly some pace to a pretty pedestrian one-pace midfield. And he looks like he could become a real weapon for us. I think I really like him in the mid. So I guess number one priority for him over the coming weeks and the following pre-season is to build up that tank because we certainly need him there. Not a lot of pace apart from him, though, is there?
No, but I think when it comes to guys like Cameron and Atkins, if we can really develop those two players into strong inside-outside midfielders, and I think they have the tools to do that. I mean, Atkins, we've seen him, the way he finds space in the contest is just phenomenal. And Cameron's aggression at the ball, his tackling pressure, and his ability to break away with speed and with his long kicking and stuff like that. If we can really complement our inside mids, guys like Matt Crouch, Brad Crouch, and Roy Sloane, Jared Lyons in the future, with guys like Cameron and Atkins, will go a long way to developing a more rounded midfield, especially if we can get in another really classy midfield in the trade period. But this week, I think we might have a bit of a struggle in the midfield. So we'll start with you, Mr. Mystery Guest, with your tips for the week and best on ground.
I've been sort of moving up and down during the week on who I think is going to win. Early in the week, I was very scared. Up until about 2 hours ago, I was starting to feel a bit more confident. But I think the Giants will win by 5 goals.
Yeah, I think some of these selections have demoralised me a little bit, and I think I'll be tipping GWS by around 40 points. Best on ground, maybe someone like a Dylan Shield who has cut us up in the past. How about you, Phoenix? How are you seeing this match?
Yeah, I'm not hopeful. The weather forecast looks like it could work in our favour a little bit in terms of nullifying their speed, possible showers, and it's a wet week in Adelaide, so that could bring them back to the pack in terms of pace. I still expect Gold Coast to.
You mean GWS, right?
Sorry, GWS to have us pretty covered. So I'm expecting a 5-goal loss this week.
Yeah, it's a little bit disappointing considering I think a lot of us in the preseason would have been flagging this as a win for the Crows, but I just think that midfield zone in particular is the real weakness for us, and the strength for the GWS Giants. So I think it'll be won or lost in the midfield, and over the past couple of weeks I just don't think our form is good enough in that area. The one interesting thing that I probably want to touch on a little bit before we move on to Game of Crows is the home ground advantage, which we haven't really touched on at all. Phoenix, does it make a difference that GWS have a bad record away?
I think it's certainly a factor, and there's no more intimidating crowd than a 50,000 screaming horde at Adelaide Oval, that's for sure. But I don't think it'll tip the scales. It tips the scales in close games, but we saw with the Geelong game that the crowd get pretty quiet when it becomes apparent that we're not in the contest, and I think we're going to look like we're not in the contest for large periods of the game, so I don't expect the crowd to be at their loudest, particularly if it's freezing bloody cold.
Yeah, I would tend to say the same. I think if we can, if anything, it'll give us a slight advantage, but again, GWS probably a little bit too strong there. All right, and that brings us to, I guess, the section from last week that we debuted, Game of Crows. So we're 26 minutes into the podcast now, and some people are probably wondering what is going on with our Game of Crows and how can you win that case of beer that I promised I'd give someone if they won this game last week. But so we'll just go quickly through and remind everyone, basically we're just making a bold claim every week. If we're right, we get 1 point. If we're wrong, 0 points. Anyone can participate listening live on Spreaker. You can just put your comments in there, recording. If you listen to the recording, tweet us, BF Crowcast, even put in the thread on Big Footy or Facebook comment or something like that. I think one of the things that we noticed from last week, though, is that everyone kind of failed. Except Vardy Magic, because he tipped Walker not to kick into the man on the mark. I paid that one. He gets a point. Everyone else gets no points. One little change I'm going to make it a little bit easier for us to win points. The bold claim about the week, it counts so long as it hasn't happened this season. So Sloan having 35 touches, for example, he hasn't had 35 touches this season, so we'll give you a point if you win something like that. Also, I still like to see things like Jenkins kicking 10 if you want to make that bold claim, which I'm going to rename a crazy claim because it's pretty much never happened. So things that are ridiculous or have never happened, if they get up, we'll give you 3 points. So it's a little bit of a gamble here. Phoenix, what is your Game of Crows prediction for this week?
Well, it's not so much a prediction as a Hail Mary, really. Because my bold claim would probably be Adelaide winning, but I don't think that'll qualify.
No. We're in with a chance still, come on.
Yeah, I know.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to go. My bold claim, Hail Mary, is going to be Jacobs winning the hitouts over Mumford.
Yep, I'd pay that. Mr. Mystery Guest, what about you?
I'm going to say Ricky Henderson, 3 effective tackles.
Don't be ridiculous.
Effective.
Ooh, I'll have to look and see, because if that hasn't happened ever, that will class as a crazy claim.
He got 3 last week. I reckon he got 3. He got credited with 3 tackles last week. God knows how. But I'm pretty sure. Though? Well, if they're in the stats, then they must have been.
I don't know. David McKay gets a lot of tackles, but would you say they're effective? I don't know.
But who's going to judge?
Okay. I can't be bothered judging. So, Mr. Mystery Guest, probably would you take maybe 5 tackles?
Let me have a look first. Hang on.
4.
4 tackles. Okay, we'll just.
Or should we just change the effective ruling to what our own standards for effective?
Yeah.
So not what the stats say, but.
No,
if you can hold the ball in.
I will pay 3 tackles because it actually hasn't happened this season. He had no tackles against the Western Bulldogs and just 2 against Geelong and Gold Coast. So, Ricky Henderson, 3 tackles, that is a bold claim. It might sound a little bit ridiculous considering he's kind of should be putting in a bit more tackles than that, but whatever. I'm going to go with Thompson to have his most disposals for the season. So, he's looked a little bit down and out in the past couple of weeks, but if we have a look at his disposals to that this season, the most he's had is 33. So I'm tipping him to have at least 35. Everyone else?
Wow.
Yeah, it's Phoenix, would you agree that's a bold claim against GWS?
It's a bold claim against any team the way he's travelling at the moment.
Okay.
Yes. I'm pretty worried about Tomo in this game.
Yeah, I agree. I'm worried about him, but if he can bounce back, I can get up in the bold claims for Game of Crows. Everyone else, don't forget to get in your suggestions this week in whatever method you feel like. Spreaker comments, tweeting at us, Facebook comments, all that stuff, and hopefully, with our slightly less bold claims than last week that didn't really pan out all that well, some of us will get
close.
Yeah, you did get close. You had Brown for 2 goals and he kicked 1 goal, so not too bad. Also interesting, someone posted for Hardigan to kick a goal, but Talia kicked a goal. So if you'd switched, the person who was listening there who went for Hardigan to kick a goal, if you just switched to Talia, you would have got yourself a point. So maybe this week you can tip Talia, but like I said, leave all your predictions and whatever in our communication channels and all that, and we will get back with Game of Crows next week. All right, so we've got an SANFL bye this week, another one. A bit shit there, but we'll move on to some of the other matches for the round, considering there's not really much to talk about with SANFL because none of our guys will actually be able to get any continuity. Game of the round, in my opinion, Sydney versus North Melbourne at the SCG on Friday night, Phoenix. This is a huge game, and who do you reckon is going to take out the points?
Yeah, it is a big game, and I think it's a big game for North Melbourne to silence the naysayers. I think they've done everything asked of them so far this year. I'm not totally convinced about Sydney, although obviously at the SCG they're a good team. I'm actually tipping the Kangaroos to get up in a really tight one.
Ooh, that's an interesting tip because that would mean they're 10-0 to start a season. That'd be a really good result for North Melbourne. Mr. Mystery Guest, who are you tipping this week in this game?
I think this Sydney at the SCG is close to the hardest away trip that you can do this year, so I'm going to stick with Sydney.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the same. I think Sydney, they've looked pretty strong over the past couple of weeks in terms of their game style and everything, whereas North Melbourne, while they haven't admittedly had the teams to display their strong form against, I think that they might be showing up a little bit this weekend and record their first loss of the season, which I guess would be disappointing for their supporters considering their strong start. Another match, this one, very exciting for us Adelaide Crow supporters, of course. Melbourne versus Port Adelaide, Saturday afternoon up in the Northern Territory. To me, this one, Melbourne is going to win pretty comprehensively, Phoenix. Do you see it the same way?
Yeah, this is the game that Melbourne jump us into the 8. Assuming our predictions on both games are right, I see Melbourne giving Port a bit of a touch-up, actually. I think Port aren't travelling too well at all. They can't pick a ruckman. Melbourne have got a dominant ruckman, and I think Melbourne's midfield at the moment is travelling really well. Very committed team. They've got some exciting youngsters, and I'd be surprised if Port get within 5 goals of them, really.
Yeah, and I think if there's any team to kick us out of the 8, that Melbourne is a team that I wouldn't mind seeing in there. They've had some hard times over the past couple of years, some of which is no fault of their own. I mean, pretty much all the fault is on them for their poor coaching decisions. But yeah, it's good to see them up and about, and I just think that Port don't really have the cattle on the ground at the moment to take on a team like Melbourne, which is a bit of a surprise, really. But Mr. Mystery Guest, will you also be tipping Melbourne? I think it's a pretty straightforward one, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. Melbourne.
Yep. So I think I'll be tuning into that one as a little bit of a warm-up to our game later that afternoon or evening. St Kilda versus Freo, Saturday twilight at Etihad Stadium. This could also be an interesting one considering Fremantle are in full-blown tank mode. They are not concerned at all about winning games, where St Kilda have looked pretty good over the past couple of weeks. I think Fremantle will get absolutely obliterated by St Kilda. Could be to 50 or 60 points, Phoenix.
Yeah, I think so. St Kilda are just tailing off a little bit, but Freo don't look anywhere near it. And Ross has obviously given the season away. So, I reckon Saints probably tighter than what you think, but quite comfortably in the end, maybe 4 or 5 goals.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot that we're still looking at a Ross Lyon coach for Fremantle, so he'll be doing everything possible to stop scoring and making the game any ounce of excitement in that match, so probably put maybe 3 or 4 extra defenders back, and yeah, you're right, probably not going to be 50 or so points. Mr. Miscus, I'll throw you over to another game, Collingwood versus Western Bulldogs at the MCG on Sunday. Collingwood has been a bit of a surprise packet over the past couple of weeks with their performances. They managed to beat Geelong last week in what was definitely a tip destroyer for me. Western Bulldogs, though, surely they'll still win this one.
I expect them to. Be happy if Collingwood did win, though.
Oh, definitely. I think it's always good to see Collingwood not getting up for a match. Phoenix, do you see the same thing, sort of Collingwood not being able to get up for this one?
Look, I actually spent a bit of time on this one, and, you know, my tipping form suggests that that does me a lot of good.
Oh, yeah. You're going terribly, mate.
Oh, I'm only 10 behind you now, so I'm creeping up.
Only 10.
Shut up.
What am I on at the moment, Phoenix?
Yeah, 10 more than me. The only thing that gives me hesitation with this one is that it's being played at the MCG, and Nikki's a real strong advocate for this, and I don't disagree with her that Bulldogs' plan falls down a little bit at the wide expanses of the G. Collingwood are in red-hot form. You know, the Bulldogs are batting pretty deep into their list at the moment with injuries. I don't know. I'm going the Bulldogs, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Magpies get up. They're in a bit of a hot streak of form at the moment.
Yeah, especially with Travis Cloke out of the side. He's not even named on their bench or anything for the interchange for Sunday sort of thing. They have to cut 3 players out. He's not even in there, and I think that it's almost been a complete reversal in form for Collingwood since they dropped Travis Cloke to the VFL. And I think Cloke had a little bit of a complaint at the selection policies of Collingwood throughout the week. I think he said something like he was sick of playing in the VFL. Well, mate, if you're not performing to the standard that Collingwood requires, you'll be in the VFL for a little bit longer. And if you can't get those poor kicking boots completely off your feet, you won't be seen for quite a long time.
I don't think he'll be seen again in a Magpies Guernsey, to be honest. I think he's done.
Ooh, now that's an interesting call, Phoenix, because I think we probably will see him towards the end of the season, but do you think he'll be traded to a different team?
I think he'll be put on the table. I think he's been put on the table the last couple of years. The question is his form's tailed off so dramatically that I don't know whether any team would really want to pay much money for him.
Oh, yeah, you're right. And, I mean, the teams that we're looking at the moment that have the weaker forward lines are like your Fremantles, your Gold Coasts, even your Western Bulldogs. And I don't see Western Bulldogs trading for Travis Cloke when they've got a guy like what's his name?
Tommy Boyd.
Tommy Boyd, of course. He's currently out of the side. Why would they trade Travis Cloke when you've got a gun forward like Boyd waiting in the wings? Fremantle and Gold Coast, they're rebuilding. Travis Cloke won't be any good in the time that he's at those two clubs. Vardy Magic asks, where's Cloke's contract at? I think he is contracted for the next 2 seasons. Could be to 30 or 31. He signed a pretty long-term contract with Collingwood a couple of years back, so he's definitely still a contracted player for Collingwood. But
was there performance clauses on the back end of that, though? I reckon there might have been. I can't quite remember, but something tells me there was.
Oh, you bloody hope so. He's been garbage. Collingwood would be wanting to get out of that contract like nothing else at the moment. It's probably costing them, 600, 700k a year. It's just been a nightmare for them. We'll move on to rapid fire questions just to close out the cast. We're nearly on 40 minutes now. Mr. Mystery Guest, we've seen that Casbolt and Cruiser have been named in Carlton's side this week. Do you reckon they'll actually play after, we've seen their injuries listed at almost 2 months for Casbolt and he's back in the team? Do you reckon they'll play this week?
I actually don't think they will. I thought the same thing as soon as I saw the ends. I thought something the Carlton are being a little bit shifty with selection this week. So either the medical team got their original diagnosis completely wrong, or Carlton are bluffing.
Yep, I'd agree. I think Carlton are bluffing there. Phoenix, we just gave Atkins a well-deserved 2-year contract. How much do you love that contract extension for him?
Quite a bit, actually. He's really pushing on at the moment. I'd like to see his possession count continue to go along that upward trend. But his poise around the ball and with ball in hand is fantastic. And well done to Rory. He was at one stage in his draft year, he was a first round pick choice and slipped so far down because of his attitude or perceived attitude problems. So kudos to him, and also kudos has to go to the club for straightening him up and turning him into an AFL player, and he's a real asset for us now.
Development, I think, is one of the best in the league as far as getting players like Atkins up to AFL standards. Been performing extremely well for us. Mr. Mystery Guest, is Jonas from Port Adelaide a nice guy or just a thug?
Massive douchebag.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Phoenix, will Nathan Van Bello ever leave our team? Is he in there for life, you reckon?
Oh, shades of Brent Harvey. He'll be running around when he's 40 because he's got elite fitness, you know.
Yeah. His fitness is always talked up. You know, he's so elite in that area.
I don't know. I was writing the epitaph after he got dropped after round one, so it really shocks me that he's been able to maintain a spot again ahead of some young lads, but that seems to be the way this selection committee is rolling at the moment. So, if he keeps putting in his 20 vanillas, then he's not going anywhere, I don't think.
Yep, I think 20 possessions this week again will seal him in for the game the following week against St Kilda. I guess that wraps us up for the Crowcast preview. A little bit too negative, I reckon, this podcast from us. Considering we're playing a tough opposition, though, we might end up just being right that GWS will get over the top, but hopefully not. Fingers crossed that we can put in a good display against the odds, I think, this weekend. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at BF Crowcast, or on Facebook, BF Crowcast as well. Get in your Game of Crows suggestions there in the Spreaker chat or in the thread on Big Footy as well. Don't forget, rate us, review us on iTunes. Every little star rating there gives us a hand or a heads up or whatever in the rankings and everything, so that people can find out about our wonderful cast here. We'll be back live next week, 7:30 p.m. Adelaide time, on the Thursday to preview next week's game, which actually is on a Sunday. So first Sunday game of the year, that'll be interesting come next week. And Phoenix, you'll be back on Sunday, am I right, for the review cast?
Yes, mate, I will be, and I might have to do what you did tonight and just hit the pub beforehand, just to fire up a bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be definitely one of two things. We'll get up narrowly or we'll get smashed. So we'll see what happens there, and we'll catch everyone next week for another episode of the Crowcast preview. But for now, we'll see you guys later.
Very good. See you later.
See ya.